That's a beautiful bird you've got there.
Thank you, it's a kestrel.
He's not moving about much, is he?
He only moves when we put 80s music on at night.
Why is that then?
Our kestrel manoeuvres in the dark.
That opening gag was a new low.
Sorry about that. The Nine of Pentacles is a card of success and appreciating the good things in life. Last week we saw the fella hammering away at his pentacles and honing his skill to become a master. This time we've got a lady who I would say has made it, and now she's enjoying the fruits of her labour and living a life of luxury. In the key to the tarot, Arthur Waite says a woman with a bird upon her wrist stands amidst a great abundance of grapevines in the garden of a manorial house. It is a wide domain, suggesting plenty in all things. Possibly it is her own possession and testifies to material well-being. So we're not a million miles away from the Nine of Cups here. That card showed contentment and abundance too. However, I think the Nine of Pentacles goes a little deeper. Waite obviously mentions material well-being in his entry, but I think the card also symbolises the state of mind that it takes to get there. Meaningful work has been a very important theme throughout this suit, and in particular the last few cards. We've seen that in terms of patience and persistence in the 7, and we saw it as physical effort in the 8. The 9 gives us an idea of the kind of mindset that's required to achieve not just what we want, but also who we want to be. Therefore, none of this is to say that the 9 represents the end goal of a process, but rather the perfection of a life well lived. Success isn't something that she's achieved, it's something that she is. We've got pentacles ripening on the bushes around her, much like we saw on the 7, but here we see them surrounded by bunches of grapes. It really is a scene of abundance, especially with the manor house visible in the background. Rachel Pollack says the pentacles growing on the bushes symbolise a life that is productive and alive. So we've obviously got the bird of prey sitting on the lady's wrist, but before we get to that, there's also another animal on this card. If we look closely at the bottom left, we can see a snail working its way across the scene. Partly this can be taken as a symbol of patience and diligence. Snails have long been associated with the idea of slow and steady progress, and we've seen that concept come up quite a bit recently. However, another connection with the snail is the idea of balance and harmony. This is apparent by the way the snail shell follows the golden ratio.
Have you got a golden radio? A brief history of the golden ratio.
The golden ratio, also known as the golden number or divine proportion, is the ratio of two numbers that adds up to 1.618. It's denoted by the Greek letter phi and has been described as a mathematical distillation of beauty. In addition to being an important concept in mathematics, the golden ratio has also been studied extensively by architects, artists and musicians. Examples of the golden ratio include the Pyramids of Giza, the Sacrament of the Last Supper by Salvador Dali, and the song Lateralus by the rock band Tool. The ratio is found throughout nature in everything from shells, flower petals and faces, all the way down to the pattern of DNA, and all the way up to the structure of the galaxy. To many people, it represents the universal pattern of divinity. The bird in the image can be taken as a symbol of imagination, but we can also see that it's wearing a hood. It's been brought under the will of its master, and that can represent discipline, but not in any kind of negative sense. We're talking about the kind of mental discipline required to bring you to this point. It's like she's completely in control of everything. One of the most wonderful things about this image is the way the character has got all of these aspects in perfect balance with each other, and she appreciates every part of it. Rachel Pollack says awareness is one of the card's basic meanings, especially self-awareness and the ability to distinguish what matters in life, what goals truly demand our best efforts. We've got a veritable smorgasbord of symbols on the Thoth card. It looks a bit like some kind of divine board game. Crowley says the discs are arranged as an equilateral triangle of 3, apex upwards, close together and surrounded at some distance by a ring, 6 larger discs in the form of a hexagon. This signifies the multiplication of the original established word by the mingling of good luck and good management.
Does that mean it's good?
I think so. There's very intricate portraits of the planetary gods on there, so that can only be a good thing. Coins with gods painting on them has got to be good news for your finances. Crowley says it shows good luck, attending material affairs, favour and popularity. That all sounds like it's heading in the right direction to me. Good luck and prosperity are always welcome here. Lonmilo Duquette says, oh how happy I am to see this card when the question concerns material matters. I don't care how unspiritual it sounds, I love this card. I'm with you 100% Lon, transcending the physical plane to communicate with the divine is all well and good, but we've still got to keep the lights on and pay the bills. He goes on to say the 9 of discs is a balanced and beautiful interpretation of what most people on this planet think of as good luck. I think we all know what we're getting from the Sforza and Marseille cards. There's your 9 coins and a few flowers for good measure. Fire, fire, the drummer's on fire. The Solar Busker card shows us what happened when the drummer from Spinal Tap spontaneously combusted.
The globe doubles in its relation to insertion and diffusion, indicating to us that from all points of view, the mercantile genie seeks to profit from all production.
The Hermetic title for the Nine of Pentacles is Lord of Material Gain.
So the Hermetic title takes us very much in the direction of the abundance aspect of the card, and that's no bad thing. The Thoth card is simply called gain, so we're firmly in the realm of stuff and having money to buy stuff. I know recently I've been banging on about meaningful work being its own reward, but it's nice to have a tangible reward at some point too. I have a subscriber from Hawaii who writes essay-sized comments to me every week and has recently been inquiring as to when we're going to start seeing some financial gains in the suit of Pentacles.
Show me the money!
Well, this is the one. We are, as we would say in the UK, quids in. Spike Milligan once said, "Money can't buy you happiness, but it does bring a more pleasant form of misery."
The Nine of Pentacles corresponds to the Virgo zodiac sign and to the planet Venus.
We're sticking with the Virgin Goddess Virgo for this one, but we've also got the sensual and erotic Venus, so I thought this was a bit of a dichotomy at first. Then I remembered that Virgo is also connected to Demeter, who was the Greek goddess of the harvest, so that works pretty well with the Waite Smith version. Venus corresponds to love, beauty, pleasure and luxury. She's also associated with self-love, contentment and being fully aware of her own worth, so she's starting to sound like a bit of a blueprint for the Waite Smith card. However, in order to get to that point, we also need structure and discipline. That's where the earth sign of Virgo comes into the mix, bringing the added element of hard work, but also the concept of personal mastery that's a big feature of this card. Nine of Pentacles notable people include motoring engineer Ferdinand Porsche, Queen vocalist Freddie Mercury, and Mexican actress Salma Hayek. Did it get hot in here?
The Nine of Pentacles resides in the world of Asya and sits at the ninth Sephira of Yesod, on the Pillar of Mildness.
So we're back at the Sephira of Foundation, but now we're in the earthly realm of Asya. Yesod acts as a kind of bridge between the spiritual realms and the physical world. That's why it's situated just above Malkut on the tree. It's often described as the foundation or engine that channels divine energy into the material plane. It is the point where the abstract and spiritual energies from the higher Sephiroth are filtered and crystallized into solid reality. Now, when we're dealing with the kind of success that we see on the Nine of Pentacles, we're talking about some pretty lofty ambitions from the higher part of the tree, and turning them into the kind of luxury and splendor that we see on the card. Also, it's no coincidence that we've got a female character on the Nine, as Yesod and the moon which it corresponds to is taken as a feminine Sephira. Dion Fortune says to Yesod are assigned all the deities that have the moon as their symbolism. Luna herself, Hecate with her dominion over evil magic, and Diana with her presidency over childbirth. The physical moon, Yesod in Asya, as the Kabbalists would say, with its 28-day cycle, correlates with the reproductive cycle of the human female.
The Nine of Pentacles herb is dark grapes. As we all know, dark grapes are the main ingredient in red wine.
I'd like a bottle of red wine, please.
Certainly, sir. What year?
I'd like it right now. But what does it all mean?
The Nine of Pentacles is a card of success, satisfaction and contentment. When it appears in a reading, it can be telling you that now's the time to start enjoying what you've achieved. There's a few comparisons to the Empress card back at number 3 in the trumps, who's also associated with Venus. I think we can see the pleasure aspect in both cards. Waite says prudence, safety, success, accomplishment, certitude, discernment. Discernment in this case meaning an appreciation of the finer things in life, don't you know?
Hand me my golden teacup, Jeeves.
Yes, m'lady.
So obviously the success element is the most important aspect, but we've also got the idea of safety and security that comes about from having all your affairs in order. This lady is very much in control of what's going on, and it shows. She's living the kind of life that comes about from her own hard work and dedication. I imagine there are few things in life that could be more satisfying than that. We've also got this idea of appreciating and enjoying that success. So if you've been working hard and being careful with your money, this card could be telling you to treat yourself and have a good time. Within reason. I don't want anyone complaining to me that they've blown all their rent money on a weekend in Vegas.
You told me to enjoy myself.
Another aspect is the idea of personal mastery and perfecting ourselves. That could be in a purely financial sense, or it could be in terms of our self-development and spiritual journey. Something else I've come across is the fact that she's alone, and some people have associated the card with making sacrifices in order to succeed. That can be things like family, social life, free time, or relationships. There's also this idea of certainty, so that's the feeling that we've succeeded because we've been doing the right thing all along to get us here. It's also related to the idea of being certain about what you want to achieve. I've always said that figuring out what you want to do is half the battle. Rachel Pollock says the card signifies success, but not simply the material benefits. It means as well the sense of certainty that comes with knowing one has made the right choices and followed them with the necessary action.
This card announces to you that you are threatened by a most skillful trickery.
We got another email. We've won the Kenyan Good Time Diarrhea Sweepstakes. Just need to give them your bank details.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was that skillful. When the Nine of Pentacles turns up reversed, it can mean making all the wrong choices, or trying to become successful by cheating, or not having a clear idea of the results we're after. Waite says reversed, roguery, deception, voided project, bad faith. So we've got that conniving aspect coming back for this one. That can include things like the kind of corporate scams or failed investment projects we sometimes see on the news. A good example of this would be the Theranos scandal back in 2018. Biotechnology entrepreneur Elizabeth Holmes was convicted of defrauding investors out of $700 million for a blood analysis technology that turned out to be about as useful as an ashtray on a motorbike. We've also got the idea of having ambition but absolutely no discipline to go with it. The magician back at number 1 in the trumps tells us to dream big, but he also tells us that they'll stay as dreams until we do something about them.
Too right, get off your backside and get on with it.
Another element is having so many different ideas on the go that it becomes impossible to make any progress. Having a clear vision of where you want to be has got to be one of the most important aspects of success. Rachel Pollock says the qualities of the card become denied or turned around, lack of discipline and the failure that comes from it, projects taken up and then abandoned, an inability to channel energy into useful purposes.
In the reverse and near a favourable card, it tells you that you'll be fooled by a bad joke.
A bit like buying the Grande Tallula Tarot book.
Oh, come on. I think it's fair to say you got your money's worth.
Well, yeah. The big takeaway from the Nine of Pentacles is making it, putting in the hours and watching everything fall into place exactly how we want it. That includes becoming the person that we want to be, whether that means spiritually or making a difference in the world or whatever else takes our fancy. Finally, it's about cash. Cold hard cash and having everything we want. And I for one wouldn't say no to a little bit of that action right now. Max Miller once said, whether you're rich or whether you're poor, it's always nice to be rich.
Looks like all this hard work is finally starting to pay off. May the coming days bring you accomplishment and prosperity. Until next time.